Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into how artificial intelligence is completely shaking up the multi-trillion-dollar logistics industry, and we're going to use the freight forwarding company Flexport as our main case study. Okay, so to really get this, we've got to start with the most basic rule in logistics, a trade-off that's been around for, well, centuries. Historically, it's always been a simple choice. You could get your stuff shipped faster, but it would cost you more. Or you could get it shipped cheaper, but you'd have to wait longer. You could never, ever have both at the same time. It was just a fundamental compromise you had to make.
But this is where it gets interesting. New AI models are just shattering that old trade-off. Using machine learning, Flexport was able to get a 20% improvement in how fast things moved. And at the same time, they cut their total ocean freight costs by 2%. Now, this isn't just a small improvement. This is a fundamental change in what's even possible in shipping.
So, the big question is, how did Flexport actually pull this off? Well, it all kicked off with the founder's personal obsession, which really caught fire right after ChatGPT launched back in late 2022. This enthusiasm from the top just ignited a massive shift across the whole company. I mean, think about it. Just 18 months ago, if you went to one of their internal hackathons, projects using large language models, that's the tech behind ChatGPT, they were super rare. You fast forward to today, and it's a completely different story. Those same LLM-based projects now make up a staggering 90% of all the entries. They went from being these little experimental toys to becoming the foundation for actual product lines. And to really pour fuel on this fire, Flexport created this program to turn their own domain experts, the non-engineers, into low-code developers. They get a full day every week for 90 days to just master AI tools. And the goal? Make them 10 times more productive in their jobs. So this huge cultural shift let them build a real digital workforce. Let's take a look at how these AI agents are now doing tasks that used to be totally manual or were just way too expensive for a human to do. These AI agents are doing some serious heavy lifting. They're parsing through complicated contracts buried in Excel files with thousands of rows. They're letting anyone ask for supply chain data with just plain English. And get this, they're rerouting about 2,000 canceled container shipments every single week. And the impact? It's totally measurable. That natural language tool alone, it cut down the time that account managers spend building reports for their customers by 25%. This is such a brilliant example of AI tackling a problem that humans just couldn't justify doing at a large scale. The AI agents now automatically email or even call warehouses to verify addresses if the data is more than 3 months old. It's a simple check that prevents really expensive delivery mistakes on a task that no one would ever pay a person to do manually. So all of these different applications start to feed into this really powerful business model. It's called Scale Economies Shared. Here's how it works. As you automate more, your costs go down. You pass those savings onto your customers. That attracts more business, which creates more data, and that data makes your AI even better. It's a classic flywheel effect. And you can literally see this flywheel accelerating. At the beginning of 2024, 20% of the work was automated. The goal is to get to 50% by the end of this year and 80% by the end of next year. But as the AI got better and better, even that 80% goal started to seem too small. The company now thinks that somewhere between 90 to 95% of all the work in freight forwarding can ultimately be automated. Okay, so let's zoom out. What happens when this level of automation isn't just at one company, but it's applied across the entire global trade system? Well, Flexport estimates that AI can drive down the total cost of ocean shipping by 8 to 10% in just the next few years. That is a massive reduction that could create some serious economic ripples all over the world. Now, this obviously brings up the big question about jobs. The argument here is that a company's main purpose isn't to employ people. It's to deliver services at the lowest possible cost. And doing that ultimately benefits all of society by making goods cheaper and more available. This really echoes what we've seen in history before. When the printing press automated the work of scribes, or modern farming replaced farmers, sure, technology got rid of jobs, but human ingenuity just created new ones, because our desires are basically endless. All of this builds up to a pretty radical vision for what logistics could become by the year 2035. The ultimate goal is to make logistics a utility that just works, like electricity. You flip a switch, the lights come on. You place an order, the goods just show up. This would free up companies to focus all their energy on making great products, not on the headache of how to ship them. So how do you make this real? The plan has two parts. First, you expand your physical operations so you're covering 95% of global container trade by 2028. Second, you make every single service available through an API, which is basically just a way for computers to talk to each other directly, allowing for full automation. And that leaves us with a final thought. If the friction and the cost of moving goods all around the world pretty much disappears, what kind of entirely new businesses, products, and ideas is that going to enable?